I'd like to posit a question. What does everyone in the world want? Now, obviously there is no one thing that everyone on planet Earth wants. But if we were to do this, Family Feud style, and survey 100 people on Bellevue College campus, what do you think would be their top answer? Survey says to be rich, right? Yeah, sure, some people are going to answer better health for them and their families, a loving mate, or a myriad of other things, but we all know that the number one answer would most likely be to be rich. So what is rich? If everyone in this room did exactly the same thing today that they did yesterday, but tomorrow woke up with $1 million in the bank, I think we can agree most people will feel rich. You know what? Let's make it $2 million. This is our fantasy, and I don't want to no longer be a millionaire after I go out and purchase my first semester of college books. $2 million is pretty good, right? Now, what if you were one of the richest people in the world? What if you're Bill Gates, a billionaire 100 times over and without question rich? So rich, in fact, he could heat his house by burning $2 million per day, every day for the next 135 years. Hashtag stupid rich life goals. But what if Bill Gates woke up tomorrow with only $2 million in his account after doing the same thing that he did yesterday, today? Would he still feel rich? By any statistical measure, he would be. According to the most recent Census Bureau statistic, it takes a net worth of $478,000 to be counted amongst the top 1% in the U.S. Merely a quarter of our fantasy $2 million bank account. But would he still feel rich? The answer to the question that you're wrestling with right now is what I want to talk to you about today. It is your perspective. The Cambridge English Dictionary states the definition of perspective as a particular way of viewing things that depends on one's experience and personality. My hope today is that you leave here with a different perspective on some of the more complex life lessons that you will need to master to successfully matriculate through college. As in high school, you'll find in college some things in which you will excel. Simultaneously, other happenings will result in you facing some of the greatest adversity that you've ever encountered in your life. Some of these situations will be boys, girls, how you approach academics, studying habits, self-care, your different viewpoints on life, and all the things that are happening to you, in front of you, and to those around you. Who are you when you face failure? Because how you deal with these setbacks is what truly introduces you to yourself. Do you have the tools, the know-how to rise above these challenges? That is why I'm here today. To give you some extra tools in your toolbox so you can further develop the perfect foundation for you. But first, let me tell you a couple quick stories. My first time traveling more than 1 hour away from home by myself, I was going to a new school I had never visited in a new state. All I had was a few dollars from my last 2 weeks at work and a tank full of gas. I was leaving everything and everyone that I knew back home and traveling to a brand new place. I was hopeful, but also scared out of my wits of this new opportunity. About 8 hours later, after using a road map for the first time, hashtag old world life skills, ask your parents about the Jurassic era pre-Google Maps on every cell phone. I made it to this college campus, and I'm sure it had more students than the small town I grew up in had people. For the first couple of weeks, I was wholly overwhelmed with the new school process. The first major problem I encountered was financial, of course. I had normally thought that my financial aid award letter covered my entire tuition, room, board, and any other miscellaneous expenses. Nope. It covered my studies, room and board, but not enough for my books and other supplies. If you haven't already found out, let me save you this expense. College books are expensive. So I had to get creative and find a way to get more money. Hindsight being 2020, I would have taken one of the full ride scholarships to other schools that cover more of those unforeseen expenses. However, the decision had been made And I was not the type to quit after my first stumbling block. So I contacted my financial aid counselor and we came up with a plan to get things covered. This was less than 7 days into my new life as a college student. Then I had to cope with a new roommate who was, well, let's say, still adjusting to time zone differences. When it was daytime in America, in her country, it was nighttime. So what time was her ideal study time? You guessed it, 4 a.m. in the morning. Guess who did not get much sleep? Many mornings after being woken up by the great light, I remember visualizing chunking that study lamp out of the window. But my body was too tired to even think about moving 1 inch. To add fuel to the fire, I started realizing that all of those studying the night before the exam techniques I perfected as a previous straight A high school student weren't working at the collegiate level. On top of trying to make new friends and not having much luck given my social awkwardness, I was starting to feel really lonely and isolated. Then the fall leaves started to turn into icicles. I found myself falling on the ground walking to class because I didn't have the proper shoes to wear. I also learned that, well, theoretically, it seemed like the more force your car exerts, aka slamming on your gas pedal, would get your wheel unstuck. When it's buried in snow, that does not work in practice. You actually have to take your foot off the gas and slow down to move forward. That was my first real theory versus practice lesson. With the financial stresses, lack of sleep, trying to juggle 16 credit hours, social isolation, and being beat up by the weather, I felt like my life was spinning out of control. This college thing was not working for me. I was feeling homesick and was ready to go back to what felt normal, felt comfortable. I was ready to leave. But how could I give up so easily after only 1 semester? Surely I had more fight in me, right? Well, the truth was, going back home would have solved nothing. High school was over, and returning home without a formal education would have left me fending for myself in a very small town with not much in the way of opportunities. So after swallowing my pride, I talked to various campus counselors, stopped hiding my struggles from my fellow freshman classmates. I realized that I needed to take that all-important lesson from getting stuck in the snow. Sometimes you have to slow down to move forward. I had to take my foot off the gas and be a little nicer to myself. And that's what I did. I knew that I had to take better care of myself if I wanted to not only survive, but thrive through college. So, what did I do for the next semester? After countless hours of saying, "Can you please put a cover over that lamp?" my roommate and I agreed to speak with our resident advisor. Luckily, she found a roommate from her same country with her study habits, and they lived happily together with their 4 a.m. study lamps ever after. I stayed in my room and had it all to myself for the semester. No more 4 a.m. wake-ups. I stepped out of my shell, joined the international club, started to make new friends. Some of those people I am still friends with to this very day. For money, I took on a work-study position as a peer health educator to help students like me who are also struggling and looking for help. Most importantly, I let go of my superstar student attitude of I can handle any number of credit hours and my plans to graduate early. I dropped down to a comfortable 12 hours, taught myself how to study at the college level, and finished my freshman spring semester with a 4.0 GPA. So great. I got it all figured out, right? Not even close. Another unfortunate reality of adult life. Simply because you learned a lesson before doesn't mean you will never make the same mistake again. The second time that it dawned on me that I was not taking great care of myself was during an exam in my comparative anatomy biology class. I was now taking 18 credit hours. Mistake number 1. Working on 2 different projects for student organizations where I was serving as president. All the while trying to maintain a sense of normalcy at home with 3 female roommates. Yeah, not something I recommend anyone. Now, as a wholesome Southern gal raised in the church, I must confess, 3 female roommates was the first time in my life that I had ever considered doing bodily harm to someone, and where exactly I hide the bodies. Needless to say, at that time in my life, I was stressed out. With my class starting promptly at 8 a.m. and exactly 1 hour to complete my anatomy exam, I had just been released from Tucker Maximum Security Prison at 7:36 a.m., where I spent the entire night without sleeping a wink after 2 of my cellmates had gotten into one bloodbath of a fight. Dead tired, I knew that if I had gone to sleep for even 10 minutes, then I would not have woken up. So I planned to stay up until after the exam, skip my 9 o'clock class, crash hard, and be refreshed for my afternoon classes. Here's the funny thing about your body. You think that you're controlling it. In actuality, it does what it wants to do. Your willpower can only take you so far until your body says, that's it. So I'm taking this exam. It's quiet. The room is nice and cool. I'm all snuggled in my lab jacket, worn over my scrubs. I began to get comfortable. Finally finding myself someplace safe and peaceful, I began to relax. My willpower had left. My body took over. I'm not sure how long I was sleeping until my professor tapped me on the shoulder and told me to wake up. Luckily, when I looked around, I saw that everyone else was still hurriedly taking the exam. I looked up at the clock, down at my exam, barely halfway finished. I rushed, tried to read the questions and fill in the bubbles as quickly as possible. I finished just as we were told to put our pencils down. About 30 minutes later, my head hit the pillow and my prison fight night was finally over. After sleeping for 22 hours straight, I vowed to myself that I would not do that again. I would take better care of myself. You see, I found myself in Tucker Maximum Security Prison that night because of my previous life choices. Remember when I told you about not taking the full ride scholarship and finding myself in financial troubles? Well, the only solution was to live with 3 roommates to try and save money, mistake number 2, and work as a nurse in an all-male maximum security prison where I was in charge of the health of over 500 inmates, with most having 25-year to life sentences. Those 2 inmates who had gotten into a fight, I spent all night bandaging them, trying to save their lives, while always being aware that my own safety was at risk, and simultaneously wondered over my study notes in my head. Many times we push our physical, emotional, and social health to the limits. Sometimes we can recover. Sometimes we do not recover as quickly. I did recover and ace my comparative anatomy exam. However, in other parts of my life, I did not recover so well. When you are tested physically, emotionally, socially, will you pass? So, what tools can I add to your toolbox from my experiences? Break out your pens and papers, or laptop, cell phone, notepad. Here are some quick tips that I learned along the way that hopefully will help you pass, will help you achieve greater self-care. Number 1, don't increase your credit hours until you've learned how to study for college. I've written a book entitled #College Life, which among other things will help you gain better control over your studies. Also, take advantage of tutoring and get study tips from the Student Center. Those with the red color sheet, can you hold it high above your head so everyone can see? Keep them held high until I ask you to put your hands down. Look around. Those pieces of paper signify, according to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, the 1 in 3 statistic of first-year students who will not make it back for their second year. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Number 2, get social outside of social media. Join a student club or volunteer for a cause you care about. Physical social isolation contributes to depression and feelings of loneliness. Those with a yellow color sheet, can you hold it high above your head so everyone can see? Look around. Those pieces of paper signify the 1 in 3 freshmen who struggle with mental health issues, according to the American Psychological Association. Feel free to yell out the answer to my next question. What do you think is the number one mental health issue among freshman students? That's right. Depression with anxiety following closely behind. You can put your hands down. Last tip, and probably the most important of them all. Talk to a trusted friend or staff professional on campus if you find yourself struggling in any area of your college life. And when is the best time to start that conversation? When you first start to think, I'm strong enough to get through this by myself. Those with the blue color sheet, can you hold it high above your head so everyone can see? Keep them held high until I ask you to put your hands down. Look around. Did you know that the second leading cause of death among college students is suicide? Those pieces of paper signify the 1 in 5 college students who report experiencing suicidal thoughts, according to a recent Harvard article entitled College Stress. Okay. Those statistics are alarming. Now, in my opinion, I think that the main driving force behind college stress among freshmen and sophomores is the difficulty adjusting to the college environment academically and socially. Those 3 tools would have helped me maintain better self-care earlier on in my college life. Helped me take a more active role in improving and protecting my physical, emotional, and social health. Maybe they can help you or a friend before poor self-care becomes an issue. Now, a key skill to master for good self-care is keeping things in perspective. Perspective is all about how you decide to look at things. When faced with difficult situations, how will you take it? I was faced with a difficult situation in my junior year that had me analyzing myself in ways I never thought I would. You will find that your junior year of college is all about getting things ordered in your life. You've made it through your freshman and sophomore years of confusion and discovery, struggling through those first 2 years, fine-tuning yourself. By this time, you're starting to feel like you're getting the handle on this thing called college. Things are starting to finally line up. You're also thinking about your senior year. You can almost smell graduation. All the while making sure that you have things in order to help you meet your goals post-graduation, be it starting a job at a top company or continuing your studies to obtain an advanced degree. These were the things that I was thinking about as I peered through my CV resume. I felt like I was still lacking in my speech communication skills. So I started looking around campus to see what was new. After some digging, I found out that one of the new instructors on campus wanted to start a debate team, which I thought would be perfect for me. About halfway through the informational meeting, it was apparent that everyone who attended decided to join. Our instructor stated that we needed to quickly prepare for the upcoming debate season and asked for a volunteer to be president, as she looked directly at me, who was the only junior in the room and stuck out like a sore thumb among the freshmen and sophomores. I'm thinking, I'm already president of 2 organizations and held high leadership positions in several others. Plus, between a loaded school schedule, volunteering, working, how would I have the time? Not only would I have to lead this organization, but I would have to help charter it. But I wanted this experience. I felt like I needed it, so I took on the challenge. Fast forward several months later, we were busing out of state for our first 2-day debate competition and very excited. A few minutes before we arrived at the hotel, I received a phone call that will forever change the memory of my first debate experience. What are you doing? We're almost at the hotel, looking forward to rocking this debate competition. Are you alone? Hold on, as I walk to the back of the bus to get some privacy. Privacy. Are you sitting down? Yeah. Readjusted my body on the bus seat. I have some bad news. What? What's happened? Your baby brother Isaiah has just went to be with the Lord. What? Isaiah's dead? How? We'll find out more details later, but for now I just wanted you to know. I will call you later as we work out the funeral arrangements, okay? Okay. Try to enjoy your trip. I love you. I love you too, Mother. That phone call lasted 63 seconds. 63 seconds ago, everything in my world was perfectly fine. School was running like clockwork. I had a great group of friends, was experiencing so many cool things with research and traveling. Right before that call, I was getting my game face on, strategizing for my victorious battle, and then bam! Life decides to bury me under a literal ton of emotional bricks. Quiana, we're here. Get your things. You okay? Yeah. Shrugging it off. I'm good. As we checked into the hotel, I knew that I had to clear my head if I was going to try to debate in a few hours. As my team and I were eating snacks and going over last minute strategies, I debated in my head if I should even debate at all. Should I tell them? Quiana, what do you think? Said our coach. I still to this day couldn't tell you what they were talking about. You seem checked out. You sure you're okay? I looked at my teammates, smiled. I'm okay. Guys, just remember to have fun and enjoy this experience. You only get one life to live, so enjoy the ride. Okay, that was a big deep, chuckled the comedian of the group. I went on to debate with my team that day, which turned out to be the wrong choice. For my first round, I totally bombed it. I didn't like that I had let my team down, let my coach down, let myself down. After completing our first round, our coach motioned me to come to a room. Let's have a quick talk. Take a seat. What's going on? You seem a bit off. Unable to hold it any longer, I just burst into tears. I told her the news. Well, giving me a big comforting hug, she told me, you don't have to debate tomorrow. In fact, although I am proud of you for trying, you shouldn't have debated today. Why don't you just stay in your room and I will tell the team what's happened. No, don't tell them. I don't want their experience to be ruined and distracted. Okay, I'll come up with something. Don't worry. Laying in a hotel bed the next day, I felt unsettled, like I was chickening out. Even if I couldn't debate, I could still help the team out somehow. Plus, laying in the bed and crying was driving me bonkers. So I got up, got dressed, walked to the area in the hotel where the debate competition was being held. Searching the board for the name of my teammate James, I found his debate room and sat down. As James, who was a freshman, had stepped up to the podium, he looked my way with a surprised smile on his face. You see, James and I had worked countless hours together, and I promised him that I would see him deliver at least one debate for his first competition. I gave him the rah-rah, fist pumps in the air. Smiling even bigger, he began his speech and performed wonderfully. Interesting enough, throughout his speech, I began to feel different. I began to feel lighter, happier, and even let out a few chuckles as he had his opponent speechless at times. We high-fived at the end. He told me how happy he was to see me and thanks for keeping my promise. Come on, let's go support the others. Debate after debate, I cheered on my teammates. My spirits rose. I stopped focusing on feeling sad and sorry for myself. My outlook, my perspective was changing. In my moment of being supportive to my teammates, I was starting my healing process within. That's why I say, helping others heals us. After the competition, my coach told my teammates the news about my brother dying. Wow. And he still came to support us, said James. Thank you for showing us what true leadership is all about, said our coach. You see, I failed miserably that weekend in my first debate performance. And it could have set the stage for me to feel like I was a failure as a leader or a debater. That I couldn't operate under pressure, couldn't focus when things got tough. However, instead of letting that situation dictate my viewpoint of my ability to perform, I decided to put that one experience into proper context. Yeah, I failed that weekend and honestly failed many times before and after that experience. But the lessons that I learned through failing could have never been taught by winning. And guess what? At the end of my junior year, I was nominated and selected as Student Leader of the Year. My failure helped me gain a new perspective that some life experiences can have you feeling hopeless, like a total failure. But when you truly analyze and use those experiences for your personal growth and development, then those experiences can be your launching pads for success. So the question was, what if you were Bill Gates? Do you focus on the lost $100 billion? Or do you start planning how you're going to turn $2 million into $100 billion again? I know what I'm going to do with my $2 million, and I truly hope after all of this, we're leaving here on the same page. Those who choose to focus on life's little negativities, whether it be losing $100 billion overnight, or getting a speeding ticket on your way to work when you have less money in your account than a ticket that you've just received, will always miss the bigger picture of life and are destined to have trouble keeping things in perspective. It's all about perspective. Brings me to my third and last point for today. Being comfortable with failure. Many times we fail at something, especially at something that we desire so badly, we internalize that fear. We have the tendency to bury it deep inside of us, water it with fear until it grows into an ugly, deep-rooted bush covered in thorns of self-doubt, self-hate, self-sabotage. We can make the choice to keep getting pricked by those thorns and bleed with self-condemnation, or yank that bush out by its roots and choose to look at failure as an ally, not an enemy. Let me tell you a quick story about a 16-year-old girl that I used to know and how she viewed one of her biggest failures. Here's a little background to help you put this teen's life into perspective. This girl grew up in a small town with big city problems. Everywhere she looked, she saw drunks stumbling down the street fights, domestic abuse, adult and child prostitution, drug addicts stealing from their loved ones. I mean, her neighborhood was so bad, if you didn't remember to remove your clean clothes from the clothesline by nightfall, they would be at the pawn shop come morning. In her own home, she remembered heating these giant pots of water on the gas stove, grunting as her little 10-year-old body lugged those pots, one after the other, to the bathroom, and getting scalded while attempting to pour the hot water into the bathtub as quickly as possible before the steam radiating from the hot water became unbearable to her little face. This was part of her routine if she wanted to bathe in warm water. You see, the water heater was not working. It ran on electricity, and unfortunately, their electricity had been disconnected by the lights company due to her parents' inability to pay the bill. Fortunately, she thought, at least the water is still on, and I can take a bath, at least for today. So this was her life, her community, in the ghetto, in the hood, in an age-old theoretical battle of nature versus nurture. It couldn't paint a better statistic of a person who would end up being a victim of their environment. She was a double minority, African American and female, raised by a teen mother who had her first child at the age of 14 and her third before receiving her high school diploma. Living below the poverty line on welfare, in a small town with few opportunities, subjected to a dangerous, toxic environment that was well beyond her control. According to statistics, the chances of this girl becoming a teen mom, high school dropout, and living on welfare less than 5 miles from where she grew up was greater than the 8.7 out of 10 chance of a smoker dying of lung cancer. Side note, don't turn smoking when you get stressed. Most smokers claim that they picked up the habit in school. Despite the odds, this young girl had a different vision and was determined to not let anyone or any statistic determine her life path. She dreamed of getting a basketball college scholarship so she could get a college degree that would help her create a better financial life for her and her family. She wanted to live in a place where, frankly, the neighbor had been put back in the hood. However, as she grew older, she realized that her life was not like the Disney stories that she read in books. Despite her best efforts in trying to make all A's in her studies, being a star varsity basketball player, her home life was having a greater pull on her. The family instability, the never-ending fussing, fighting, addictions, having to check out of school early to babysit siblings, financial troubles, struggling and moving from place to place due to the inability to pay rent, the constant peer pressure of drinking, having unwanted sex, and doing drugs were all wearing out this 16-year-old girl. She was struggling to keep it all together to keep her sanity. Then the final blow came. One normal day after school, she walked into her apartment home to boxes being packed. "Ugh, moving again," she said. Her mom walked up to her, looked her in the eyes, and stated words that felt like icicles piercing through her heart. "I'm leaving, and you need to find a place to stay." Her family was torn apart, and she was heartbroken. For as bad as things were at home, up to this point, she was at least going through them with her family. It's all about perspective. She struggled. She turned to her 15-year-old best friend, Bunny, for housing. Bunny was her closest companion. A 1986 Pontiac Bunnyville that she purchased for $750 in the summer by working overtime. She thought to herself, well, I can work even more hours to try and get a low-income apartment, but they denied her, stating, "Your wages qualify, but at 16, you're too young to lease an apartment. However, if you were to somehow get pregnant or had a baby, then you could qualify." She had seen the struggles of growing up with an impoverished teen mom, and she wasn't about to repeat that cycle, so she kept moving forward. A daily washing and drying her clothes at a laundromat. Going to school early to wash up. Trying to rotate, staying at friends' homes, being careful not to stay too long, to be viewed as trying to live there. At nights when she couldn't find a place to sleep, it was her and Bunny. This went on for quite some time, in between adjusting to being homeless, trying to maintain a high GPA, showing leadership as captain of the varsity basketball team, working 16-hour shifts. It was starting to take a toll on her. Her high grades began to slip. Her performance on the court was declining. The dreams of another life began to fade away. Her hopes of escaping her environment and getting a sports scholarship were slipping through her fingers. Her perspective on life was changing. It was going from hopeful to succumbing to her environment. She began to slowly give up, hang around the wrong crowd, getting into trouble, and leave school early so she could go to work. She was breaking mentally, little by little, as she found herself breathing frantically, suffering from panic attacks on the classroom floor, surrounded by her teachers and classmates. She was losing herself and viewed the person in the mirror as a complete failure. She didn't like the direction in which she was heading, but she didn't know what to do about it. She felt powerless. Why was all this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? She started feeling sorry for herself. She couldn't keep up. She was a failure, and she was no better than the environment that she had been trying to avoid all these years, whispered that little voice in the back of her head. As she clocked into the nursing home where she worked as a CNA, she told herself that she was just throwing a towel on school and basketball. Then just work as much as she could, and getting more money would be the best strategy for her life right now. Before she walked into the staff room, she heard a "Come here, baby," from one of her favorite residents, Miss Johnson. She hurried over and asked Miss Johnson, do you need help with something? As she stooped down to her wheelchair. "No, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you. You take such good care of me, and I'm thankful, sweetie. I don't have any family. You treat me like family. Thank you. Now, carry along with what you're doing. I just want to let you know that," as she sent her along her way. Miss Johnson's words wouldn't escape that 16-year-old girl as she worked her double shift. She couldn't help but think, here this woman was, in her 90s. No one came to visit Miss Johnson. She received no letters, no phone calls. She had outlived her husband and 2 children. Sometimes she forgot her own name and was confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life. She couldn't even bathe nor dress herself. With all the pills that she was taking and the long list of health conditions, it was known that Miss Johnson's days left on this earth were numbered. But despite all her problems, the team couldn't help but ponder over Miss Johnson taking a moment out of her truly precious time to thank her. A young girl who was fighting her own internal battle of survival. Remember, it's all about perspective. Those words continued to touch her throughout that shift so much that she began to stop feeling sorry for herself. She examined herself. Here she had legs and arms that worked, a voice that could be heard, and a mind that kept her safe throughout this difficult situation. She decided to take one last action. Something that she had been avoiding over fear of being rejected again. Fear of being jolted away from all that she knew, and honestly, feeling unworthy. Immediately after she got off work, she called the most stable relative that she knew and trusted. Her uncle, living in a big city located miles away from her small town. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she explained to him what had been happening. She mustered up enough courage to ask him if she could come live with him and his family. She promised that she would not be a burden, that she would refocus, get her grades back up, go to college, and get her degree. She continued on stating that she would continue to work and take care of her personal expenses like clothing and car insurance. All she needed was a stable home. Him and his wife immediately agreed to take her in, give her another chance, and help her get back on her feet. After she hung up the phone, she thought about Miss Johnson and felt more hope than ever before. And this is the most interesting thing about this story. That teen girl went into work that day to take care of Miss Johnson, when in fact, the patient became the healer, and Miss Johnson took care of her. Helping others heals us. So what happened to that teen girl? Did she make good on her promise, or did she squander her new opportunity? Well, shortly after that call, she moved in with her uncle's family. I would like to say that everything was happily ever after, but we all know that real life is more than a Disney story. This teen still encountered failures and stumbling blocks along the way. But she never forgot Miss Johnson, nor her promises to her uncle. She graduated from high school on time with honors and over 17 different college and university acceptance letters, with a combined total of over $250,000 in college scholarships, grants, and awards. When she entered college, it was not a breeze for her either. She had encountered so many failures in academics and in life that, in fact, it seemed like failure was a close friend. The type of friend who delivers that tough love, the type of love that beats down your inflated ego while teaching you valuable lessons along the way. With accepting that things would never be perfect and turning her failures into launching pads, she never forgot her promises and never forgot Miss Johnson. As she was sitting down in her cap and gown at her undergrad commencement ceremony, she was reminded of all the hardships that she had to overcome up to that point. However, this reminder did not originate internally, but externally, from the first African American First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama. She stated that if I could go from being homeless at 16 years old to graduating not only number one in the biology department, but number one in the entire School of Arts and Sciences, then surely everyone else could overcome the adversity facing their own lives. Shortly after, ABC World News Tonight interviewed and named me Person of the Week for showing how helping other people can keep you believing in yourself. As I wrap things up, it is my goal to ensure that you leave here today with a clear understanding of my message. Be comfortable with failure, because if you're diligent in your efforts to make the most out of life, failure will be your most tried and truly constant companion. Keep things in perspective. If you fail to keep your failures in perspective, then you will accept your failures as a measure of who you truly are, instead of as the tools used by others who have reached the level of success that you're striving to achieve. Take good care of yourself. Probably the most important, simplest, and easily overlooked of all life lessons. Becoming comfortable with failure and keeping things in perspective is much easier when you have friends to help you along the journey. And for some reason, people tend to forget that you should have no greater friend than yourself. We are oftentimes our own worst critic and can say things to ourselves that cut deeper than any blade. If any of your parents are older than me, then I'm sure you've heard the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Being comfortable with failure and keeping things in perspective are only possible when you have established an unshakable sense of self-worth through continuous self-care. I hope I've helped you today with a small snippet of my journey, helping you understand the importance of self-care along with a few tips. I hope that I've convinced you to allow failure to help you achieve your desired success in life, as those before you have used this unappreciated tool to tremendous personal benefit. If it had not been for me accepting my failures as teachable moments, I promise you, I would not be talking to you today as a first-generation college graduate, as a person who has performed research for institutions such as Yale and NASA, living my dream career as a published author, public speaker, who travels to different colleges and universities around the world, sharing my story, my experiences. So, I want you young future economic engines starting out as freshmen and sophomores to have a sense of purpose and direction as you continue the journey of discovery. Rewriting your life, examining the core of who you are and what you perceived yesterday to be your passions, likes, and dislikes, which will, without question, be challenged numerous times throughout your collegiate experience. College is only the beginning of your journey. It is only the stage setter. Your college major is not the definition of who you will be 5, 10, 20 years post-graduation. College is about fine-tuning that voice within, knowing when to make that inner voice louder than the outside distractions of life, as well as telling the one, if only, universal equalizer of all men and women, internal self-doubt. Shh, I'm stronger than I think. All I have to do is hustle harder. Lastly, having a great life is about putting things in perspective. Choose a more helpful, positive outlook. Seek the guidance and support of your positive peers and staff professionals on campus. And if you ever get down on yourself, hurting, feeling low on self-worth, then go and help somebody to kickstart your healing process. Remember, helping others heals us. Thank you for letting me heal a little bit more today.